One of the questions I get more than almost any other from patients, from family members, and sometimes from people I just met at the hardware store is some version of this. Is there anything I can actually do to lower my cancer risk? And my answer is always the same. Yes, more than most people realize. But the problem is that the conversation about cancer prevention in this country is so dominated by fear and fatalism that most people never actually hear what the evidence says. Here's the number that changes the conversation. Research suggests that roughly 40% of all cancer cases in the United States are linked to modifiable risk factors, things we can actually change. Not genetics, not bad luck, lifestyle. That's not a small number. That's nearly half. And yet, most of the people I see in my clinic have never been told this in a way that felt actionable. So today, I want to give you the real mechanism, the real evidence, and the specific habits that the research consistently supports. I'm Dr. Kabir Haritran Singh, and I'm board certified in both family and obesity medicine. But I want to be clear, I'm not an oncologist, and this video is not a substitute for your own doctor or screening guidelines. What I am is a primary care physician who has these conversations with patients, and I want to give you the evidence-based breakdown that a 15-minute appointment usually doesn't allow for. Okay, to understand how to prevent cancer, you need to understand what it is at the cellular level. Our body contains roughly 37 trillion cells, and every single day those cells are dividing, producing new cells to replace old ones. And every single time a cell divides, there's a chance for a copying error, a mutation, because our DNA is being transcribed billions of times a day, and mistakes happen. That sounds terrifying, but here's the thing. Our immune system was built for this. We have specialized immune cells, particularly a group called natural killer cells and cytotoxic T cells, whose entire job is to patrol your body, find abnormal cells, and destroy them before they can replicate. This happens constantly without us ever knowing. Cancer develops when this system fails. Either the mutations happen faster than the immune system can keep up with, usually because something is driving the mutation rate up, or the immune system itself is impaired and can't do its surveillance job properly. Interestingly, both of these fail-safe systems are heavily influenced by lifestyle. So, what are the biggest modifiable drivers of cancer risk? Let me go through them because I think some of these will genuinely surprise you. Let's start with obesity, the second leading cause of preventable cancer in the United States, right behind smoking. The connection isn't just about weight, it's about what excess body fat does biologically. Visceral fat, which is the fat stored around your internal organs, is metabolically active. It doesn't just store energy for when we need it later, but it produces inflammatory chemicals, it dysregulates hormones like estrogen and insulin, both which promote cell growth, and it creates an environment that actively encourages abnormal cell growth. This is why obesity is linked to at least 13 different types of cancer, including colon, breast, endometrial, pancreatic, kidney, and esophageal cancer. The good news here is that even a modest weight reduction of 5 to 10% of body weight reduces these inflammatory and hormonal drivers. Next up is chronic low-grade inflammation, which does two things that are dangerous in the context of cancer. It promotes the formation of new blood vessels, which tumors need to grow, and it suppresses the immune cells that would otherwise detect and destroy abnormal cells. Think of it this way. Our immune surveillance system is trying to patrol and protect, but chronic inflammation is like putting that patrol team in a fog. They're still there, still trying to do their job, but they can't see as clearly and things slip through that shouldn't. Not coincidentally, the drivers of chronic inflammation, ultra-processed food, poor sleep, sedentary lifestyle, chronic stress, are also cancer risk factors because the mechanisms overlap almost completely. Moving on to the next one, alcohol, a group 1 carcinogen, meaning there is sufficient evidence that it causes cancer in humans. It's linked to cancers of the mouth, throat, esophagus, liver, colon, and breast. And the risk is not limited to heavy drinking. Even moderate drinking, 1 to 2 drinks a day, is associated with increased risk for certain cancers, particularly breast cancer. Now, I'm not telling you to never drink. I'm telling you this because most people I see assume that if they're not a heavy drinker, alcohol isn't a factor for them. But the evidence says otherwise. If cancer prevention is a priority for you, this is one of the clearest modifiable risk factors on the list. Another risk factor, sleep. Your immune system does most of its active work while you sleep. Deep sleep is when the activity of the natural killer cells peaks, when your body repairs DNA damage, and when the inflammatory chemicals that accumulate during the day get cleared out. consistent poor sleep, under 6 hours a night, or disrupted sleep quality from conditions like sleep apnea is associated with measurably higher cancer risk, particularly for colon and breast cancer. In general, sleep deprivation is one of the most underestimated risk factors in medicine. But in the context of cancer specifically, that mechanism is direct. You are literally reducing the immune system's capacity to do surveillance, which is your first line of defense against abnormal cells. Finally, processed meats like hot dogs, deli meat, bacon, and sausage are classified as group 1 carcinogens also, and the evidence specifically for colorectal cancer is consistent across dozens of studies. Unlike processed meat, red meat is classified as a group 2 carcinogen, a probable carcinogen, but the association with colorectal cancer is well established. The mechanism involves compounds called N-nitroso compounds, which form in the gut when these meats are digested, and which can damage the lining of the colon. Cooking at high heat also produces compounds called heterocyclic amines and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which are mutagenic, meaning they promote the kind of DNA copying errors that can lead to cancer. After hearing all that, you're probably wondering, what can I actually do to lower my cancer risk? Well, it's not supplements and it's not detoxes, but let's talk about the interventions that consistently show up in large population studies. Number 1, exercise. This is the most important one. If I could give every person one intervention that prevents cancer, it would be regular, moderate exercise. The evidence here is unusually consistent across multiple cancer types. Regular physical activity is associated with reduced risk of at least 13 cancers, including colon, breast, endometrial, kidney, bladder, stomach, and esophageal. A 2019 analysis of 750,000 people found that higher levels of physical activity were associated with a 10 to 20% lower risk across multiple cancer types. The way it works is exercise reduces visceral fat. It reduces circulating insulin and estrogen. It reduces chronic inflammation, and it directly enhances immune function, including the natural killer cells I mentioned earlier. And you don't need extreme exercise either. 30 to 45 minutes of sustained, moderate intensity activity, the pace where you can hold a conversation, but with a little effort, done most days of the week is enough to capture most of this benefit. This is one of the most consistent findings in cancer prevention research. Number 2, eat a diet that doesn't feed cancer. The Mediterranean diet has the strongest overall evidence for cancer prevention. That means olive oil as your primary fat, plenty of vegetables and leafy greens, legumes, nuts, whole grains, fatty fish, and berries, which are dense in compounds called anthocyanins that have anti-inflammatory and potentially anti-cancer properties. Cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and even kale deserve a special mention. They contain compounds called sulforaphanes, which activates the cellular detoxification pathways and has shown anti-cancer activity in lab studies. The research in humans is still developing, but the signal is consistent enough that I try to add them to my meals and to my garden. On the other side, minimize ultra-processed foods, minimize processed meats, limit alcohol, and limit added sugar, which drives insulin spikes that create a cellular environment more favorable for abnormal growth. Fiber specifically deserves attention for colorectal cancer. High fiber diets are consistently associated with lower risk, partly because fiber feeds the gut microbiome, which regulates immune function and reduces the amount of time that carcinogenic compounds are in the colon. Number 3, excess body weight, especially visceral fat. Given everything I explained about visceral fat and cancer risk, reducing it is one of the most impactful things you can do. The combination of a Mediterranean-style diet and regular exercise is the best evidence-based approach. Even a 5 to 10% reduction in body weight is associated with measurable drops in inflammatory markers, circulating estrogen, and insulin levels. Number 4, prioritize sleep. The target here is 7 to 9 hours for most adults, with attention to quality, which means addressing things like sleep apnea if it's present. Sleep isn't optional. From a cancer prevention standpoint, it's when your immune surveillance system runs its most active patrol. Number 5, limit or eliminate alcohol. This is a personal decision, but if you're thinking about cancer risk specifically and you want to optimize your modifiable risk factors, alcohol is one of the clearest levers available to you. Even reducing to occasional use is likely better than daily moderate use. Now, I have to say this clearly because it's just as important as everything I've said so far. Prevention isn't just about lifestyle. It's also about finding cancer early, before it becomes a bigger problem that's much harder to solve. Did you know that getting a colonoscopy starting at age 45, or earlier if you have a family history, is one of the most powerful cancer prevention tools in medicine? Colonoscopy finds and removes precancerous polyps before they ever become cancer. The 5-year survival rate for colon cancer caught at stage 1 is over 90%, but it's under 15% when caught at stage 4. That gap is entirely explained by whether we find it early or late. The same principle applies to breast cancer, cervical cancer, and lung cancer in high-risk smokers. This is why screening exists. If you're behind on your screening, or if you've been putting off a colonoscopy, a mammogram, a skin check, then this video is your reminder. The lifestyle changes matter enormously, but it works best in combination with actually finding anything that gets through. Cancer isn't entirely random, it's not entirely genetic, and it's not entirely out of your hands. The research is clear that a meaningful portion of cancer risk is modifiable, and the interventions that reduce it are the same ones that protect your heart, your brain, and your metabolic health. You're not choosing between a life you enjoy and a life with lower cancer risk. The habits that protect you are the same ones that give you more energy, better sleep, a sharper mind, and a longer, more capable body. Move your body most days, eat food that your gut and your immune system need, sleep like your immune system depends on it, because it does, reduce visceral fat, and please stay current on your screening. If this gives you something useful, please subscribe, and if there is a specific topic you want me to tackle, leave it in the comments. Okay, I'll see you in the next one.